Assalamu alaikum. We are going to start today's session on keratoplasty, past, present, and future. I'm going to call upon stage the first presenter, Professor Dr. Sophia Farooq, for the burden of corneal disease and keratoplasty in Pakistan, a nationwide audit. She's not here. Okay, let's wait for her, but we will, in the meantime, we'll move on to the second one. Okay, Dr. Danish Zafar on corneal retrieval, the challenges behind the process. Dr. Danish Zafar.
Assalamualaikum ji. I'm so sorry you have to bear with my voice. I'm having pharyngitis at moment. I intended to present my presentation at the end of this session because I will be focusing on the corneal retrieval. So, okay, so we will start with the corneal retrieval challenges in the Pakistan. I will be talking about the challenges in the corneal retrieval program in Pakistan, the recent updates, the key challenges, and the strategic solutions. By the way, this is the first picture of keratoplasty in Ayub Medical College, which I performed few years back. So why the corneal retrieval matters? You will be talking about the different corneal procedure in the upcoming presentation, and then you can see the significance of that why it matters that we should have the corneal tissue for treating the treatable blindness, and approximately 250,000 people in the Pakistan suffer from the corneal diseases leading to blindness at the moment. So, as I said, that most of these corneal blindness is treatable blindness, and we can decrease the social impact of these blind people by offering different procedures, right from the penetrating keratoplasties to the different layer of corneas transplantation. So the current status is that, as I said, that we have almost 250K corneal blind people in our country, and the cornea received annually at moment is less than 1K. So there is backlog of a lot of patient, and currently we can meet the less than 1% of total estimated need. So because of all these things, as you know, that the corneal transplantation at moment is centered in the major cities, and talking about the Hazara and Ayub teaching hospital, that was my motive, because the people living in the Hazara division in small pockets and coming again and again, and for the follow-up, the cost of the procedure increases and the pain for the patients increases. So you should have a multi-centered in your at the national level in the different provinces, which can deal with all that backlog, which is more than 300K at moment. Most of the time nowadays, we are relying on the cornea from the outside of the country. And in our country, the corneal retrieval program is not launched at moment, except for few examples. I will talk about it later. So what are the core challenges that hinders the local corneal retrieval? Number one, it can be the awareness and knowledge gap, because most of the journal public don't have that knowledge why it is important. Then we have the cultural or religious barriers, and misinterpretation of these religious teaching lead to lack of family support. I'm happy that most of the religious scholar at the moment with us, they are talking about approval from the religious point of view for the corneal donation. But not all of them are in favor of corneal donation at moment. Then we are lacking the system and the policies for developing and sustainable programs of the eye banks. And for sustainability, we need legislations, we need fundings from the government. At moment, this is a big challenge. But still, we have a hope of re-arising. And there are some examples like NADRA has included the donor logo in the NIC program. If talking about the KP, the MTRA KP has registered at least 3 hospitals for the corneal retrieval program at the moment. And we have some examples as volunteer, which is giving a hope that at least we have started talking about the corneal retrieval. So we need basically a roadmap for national self-sufficiency program, which include the targeted awareness, which include the multi-platform campaigns involving the religious scholars to address the misconceptions. We need the operational excellence to train our staff for the corneal retrieval. We need the coordinators for the counseling, and we need the rapid response protocol as well. And for that, we need definitely the infrastructure and the policies so that we can carry on with the self-sustainable programs. As I said at the start of my presentation that there is an inspirational case study, I would love to mention Lailpur Eye Trust Hospital, Faisalabad, who are the pioneers of corneal retrieval in the Pakistan, and currently they are the only one who where the corneal retrievals are done on the regular basis. So what they have done, that they have their infrastructure, they have trained their retrieval technicians, ophthalmic surgeons, and they have the counselor which on normal days counsel the people and targeting the hospitals in the local area. So the call to action is that it is basically a collective responsibility. We should start talking about why the corneal retrieval locally is important. And you, at the end of this session, I hope that you will understand why the corneal tissue matters for treating all the corneal blindness diseases. So for the ophthalmologist, we need to work on our staff. We need to have lead the awareness campaigns. We should be the mentor to tell the people why that matters. The hospital administration should be involved and they should prioritize all these things so that we have a corneal banking system, at least 1 or 2 in every province of the Pakistan. And then we need to engage the policy maker to have funds and sustainable programs. And for the public, as I said before, you need to target even the school children and the young generation for the importance of the corneal donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. The next presenter is Professor Dr. Sophia Iqbal. She is going to tell us about penetrating keratoplasty, defining anatomical and functional success.
Procedure by most of the general ophthalmologists. We all are familiar with this procedure. And we all know that corneal transplantation is one of the commonest performed transplant procedure because of its ocular immune privilege. The first one was performed in 1905, and since then we have come a long way. By penetrating, we means to replace all layers, and by lamellar, we means to replace some of the layers, and they will be discussed by the colleagues who are going to follow me in their presentations. These are some of the indications, and among the corneal causes, keratoconus and corneal dystrophies are the top, but bullous keratopathy is also becoming a popular indications for keratoplasty. We all are familiar with dealing corneal ulcers and fungal ulcers, and if we have the grafts available, then the management can be a game changer. So surgical technique involves preoperative evaluation, which involves all this, but the most important thing I want to stress upon is the use of B-scan and biometry. Sometimes when we remove the scar, there is a cataract there, and if our biometry is not there, so we are not able to put an implant. So it's better to perform a biometry either of the same eye or of the other eye. as well as anterior segment OCT, which can then define the relationship with the underlying structures. IOP control is very important, so per-operatively and before that, mannitol should be given, and pupil dilation all depends on whether we are going to do a triple procedure or a single penetrating keratoplasty. These are some of the surgical steps. When most important is selection of the graft size, and then comes the trephination. The first trephination done is that of the donor, and then comes the recipient. Femtolaser is also used for trephination, and recently we started doing that as well. So the graft size depends on the pathology, but the most important message here is that there has to be a 0.25 discrepancy for a proper fit. So first we do a donor, and then comes the host trephination by different kind of trephines, and then we easily cut it with scissors, which I'm going to show in a video then. And a triple procedure, in the morning a video was shown, triple, in which we can also remove cataract and put an implant. So, nahi wapas. Excuse me. Video chalani hai. Yes. So, trephination of the donor tissue is done first. A Teflon block, endothelium side up, viscoelastic being placed, and then you can do trephination. Put it safe, and you can put a viscoelastic on it then. You can do it with femtolaser, and this is the one which is being performed now. That gives a very good cut. But since it's a private sector procedure, so that adds up more to the cost of surgery. So the host trephination can be done by different kinds of trephines. There can be vacuum trephines, adjustable depth trephines, and there can be manual and disposable trephines, which are commonly used in our hospitals. They are different kind of trephines. And then you use corneal scissors to complete the cut. Now, host trephination can also be done by the use of a femtolaser, and you select a graft size, and then a very clean cut. So then comes the suturing technique. So the first 4 sutures are very important. That is the fixation sutures. And then the rest of the suturing, you can use continuous and interrupted, both combined, or you can use interrupted alone. So for sutures, even markers are available, and you can use that for proper alignment. Remember that one suture can induce astigmatism up to 1 to 3 diopter. So this is the triple procedure in which there is a cataract, you deal with it there. You can put a vision blue in this case, and after hydrodissection, the nucleus is delivered, and sometimes the posterior capsule there can be a very positive vitreous pressure, so with mannitol use can help a lot in such cases. So there's a long list of complications for penetrating keratoplasties. Per-op, post-op, and we have to be vigilant for a very long time to look after these patients. So when we say anatomical success, we mean we have a clear graft which is avascular, and there are good suture alignment there, and there should be no rejection there, endothelial count should be enough for the detergents. So that means anatomical success. And there should be no such complications which I have mentioned. That will ensure a good anatomical success. For a good physiological success, it means very good useful vision after the procedure. These factors have to be addressed or they should be absent, like irregular astigmatism, cataract progression, macular diseases, and optic nerve diseases. These all factors contribute to physiological success. Management of post-penetrating keratoplasty astigmatism is the most important thing. In the early time, you can manipulate with the sutures. You can either remove or loosen the tight suture on the steeper meridian, and as I said, it can reduce the astigmatism or induce the astigmatism by 1 to 3 diopter. And all is done by topograded. Astigmatism, once when you remove the suture, how to deal with that? So the non-surgical options can be specs and contacts, as well as the corneal procedures, which can be paired arcuate incision, where you have to reduce astigmatism in the steeper meridian. That can be done manually with diamond knives or femtolaser assisted. Again, another use of femtolaser here. So sometimes you have to combine it with compression sutures. So these are the procedures which we do when, okay, corneal wedge resection with very high astigmatism, more than 10 diopter. And the other thing is, you can also do a topography guided PRK or femtolasic in these residual errors, provided there is adequate stromal thickness and there is a stable endothelium. You can combine it with corneal rings as well to deal with these kind of astigmatism. That is after removal of sutures. Greer grafting is an option when the astigmatism is more than 15. It is an irregular graft, it's an ectasic graft, it's a scarred graft. Then you can think about either regrafting or a Boston keratoprosthesis, which my other colleague is going to discuss. So this is just a management plan for different type of astigmatism, pre-op and post-op and so on. So these were some of the patients which we did very recently. And thank you very much. But I would like to thank the donors, because behind every clear cornea lies a silent act of generosity. ये वो अजीम तोहफा है जो जिंदगियों को नई रोशनी देता है, and for which we would be grateful and thankful to our donors. They are the true enablers and the true heroes of Sight Restored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Our next presenter is Dr. Zaman Shah. He's going to talk about the evolution of corneal transplantation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And today's topic is basically the evolution of the corneal transplantation, and we will be starting from the DSEC to DMEC and one of the newly designed procedure by the name of the DRLT, donor to refractive lenticule transplantation, which we have the honor to design a few years back. And hopefully we will show a video of the DRLT with as well. Now, if you look at in the selective lamellar corneal transplantation procedure, this is in alphabet soup, where you got the full thickness anterior lamellar keratoplasty and a number of the endothelial keratoplasty, right? Now, in endothelial keratoplasty, basically this is a revolution in the history of the corneal transplantation, where we got a various posterior and anterior lamellar corneal transplant procedure. Among these is the DSEC, decimate stripping automated endothelial keratoplasty, for which we need a donor microkeratome. Again, it is a sutureless procedure. We need a small incision. It's a very close procedure, and there is a minimal ocular surface disturbance and minimal refractive change. And so less tissue is transplanted in this procedure, so less chance of the rejection. Now, this is one of the paper in American Journal of Ophthalmology. What are the indication for the DSEC procedure? The FOX is the most common one. Pseudophakic bullous keratopathy, repeat graft, other form of the endothelial decompensation. Now, what are the advantage of the DSEC procedure? It is a small incision, close eye surgical procedure. There is a greater wound strength, large diameter graft than the PK, so more endothelium they are transplanted. So again, no ocular surface disturbance. It is basically a faster visual recovery, and there is a relative ease of the repeat transplant. Now, this is the disadvantage. The donor dislocation is one of the major disadvantage. Damage to the endothelium again, and it's got a very steep learning curve. And of course, the other things as well. Another modern procedure is the DMEK, disseminate membrane endothelial keratoplasty. The difference between the two is that in DSEK there is part of the posterior corneal stroma, but in DMEK only the disseminate in the endothelium, right? So how we size, which size of the donor tissue we select, this is variable. In USA, in most of the center, they select a large diameter graft. Here in Pakistan, most of the DMEK surgeon, they select only 7.5 to 7.75 millimeter is the size of the graft. This is how we sizing the graft size. There is some problems for the larger graft and for the smaller graft. Basically, in problems of the larger graft is that it can be difficult to unfold, especially if the anterior chamber is shallow, and we may have the central detachment. Larger graft may also overlap the disseminator rexus edges. That's why detachment is more common. This is the previous PK. We can also go for DMEK in the previous PK, but the size, suppose if the size is 8 millimeter, so we keep the size of the DMEK a bit smaller, right? So that it should not override the edges of the previous PK. This is again, we are talking about the sizing of the graft and how we prepare the graft. We can prepare the graft by itself, and we can also